Shalom. Today's daf yomi is Bava Basra daf Lametes Bava Basra 39. Today's daf yomi is dedicated for Shmir for the Chayalim, Matzah for the Shvuyim, and a Yeshua for Am Yisrael on this Eis Tzara. So we're going to do now the daf yomi for Shabbos Kodesh, Shabbos Mevorach, and Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av. So the Gemara is going through different possibilities of what's called a macha. So let's say the person, the ma'arer, the one who's making the complaint, says to the witnesses in front of whom he's making the macha, Amar lo tamerle, he says, tell, don't tell the person who's the machzik, don't tell the person who's on my property that I'm making a complaint. What's the law there? So Amar Rav Zvid, we're going to see a whole dispute about these issues between Rav Zvid and Rav Papa. Rav Zvid said, under these circumstances, how come Amar lo tamerle? How is it a macha? How's an objection? He told the person, don't say anything. And so therefore it doesn't count. Our Papa says, he said, you yourself cannot tell him, but you can tell other people about it. And we have a concept, that your friend has a friend, and your friend's friend has another friend. So eventually he's going to hear about it. So then the next case is the Gemara says, if they said to the person, we're not going to tell him about it, then is that going to be considered a valid macha? So the witness has said to the person who makes the macha, we're not going to tell him anything, is it valid? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Zid, we told the person who's making the macha that we're not going to tell the machzik about it. So then it's obviously of no value. Meaning to say, because if the person, Rashbam says, if the person who's the ma'arer, if he indeed was the real owner, then once he heard this, he would have gone and made a different machas. Well, the fact that he didn't do so, that shows that he's not the real owner. So that's what Rav Zid's argument is. Rav Papa says, no, he said we're not going to tell the ma'asik, but they're going to tell other people. And and your friend has a friend, and your friend's friend has a friend. Amar Lahu, in a third possibility, let's say he says, the Ma'ara says to the witnesses, don't say anything, not even a single word about this to anybody else. So Amar Rav Zid, under those circumstances, he said, don't say anything. So since he said, don't say anything to anybody, so everybody would agree. And under these circumstances, he's saying that it's not a macha, because everybody says, don't say anything. So even Rav Papa would agree in this case, it's not a valid macha. So now they have a fourth case. If the witness had said, we're not going to say anything. So Rav Papa says it's not valid because he said we're not going to say anything. But Rav Huna Bar Rav Yeshua now argues with Rav Papa, and he says, anything that a person is not directly responsible for, to keep it secret, means that they don't have security clearance, to keep it quiet. He'll say without recognizing it. He's not going to pay attention to it, and he'll say without really being without having it, without a significant aspect to it. So that's the law. So then the Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman says, let's say it's a macha and it's not in his presence, that's going to be considered a valid macha. If he makes an objection, you're not in front of the person, that's a valid objection. Esvei Rabba Rav Nachman. So Rabba challenges Rav Nachman. Amar Rav Yehuda, that Rav Yehuda taught. Amru Shalosh Shanam El Kadesh Yeheba Aspamya V'Yachzik Shana V'Yachov Yodu Shana V'Yavo Shana Acheres. So you want to say that if the macha is not in his presence, it's a valid macha. What about the case we just had from the Mishnah with Rav Yehuda, where the guy goes, this guy's in Spain, and we say it takes a year to go there, a year to hear about it, a year to go there, and a year to go back. But if you're going to say that you don't need to make the macha in his presence, then why does he need a year to go back? It's a macha. Even if he's in Spain, he can make the objection. So the Gemara says, why does he have to go back from Spain? Let him stay there and make his objection while he's over there. So the Gemara says, no, there in that case, is just giving us good advice, that the Rabbi Uda is just giving advice to Neisei V'Nishko Aro Peri, that he should come back from Spain and he should make a claim for his land before he continues to eat his fruit. So Rabbi Yehuda might even possibly agree that, but he's just saying that as a proper advice, we're telling him advice, and he's telling him as good advice that he can come back and return because we want to stop him from eating the fruits. So the Gemara says, Midikamotzavay Rabba or Rav Nachman, from the fact that Rabba challenges Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman said, Machashal B'fanav, he's challenging him that Machashal B'fanav cannot be a Macha. So we see from here, Makal, the Los Firway, the Machashal B'fanav having Macha. We see from here that Rabba doesn't agree with this idea, an objection not in front of somebody is a macha. But didn't Rava himself say this? And that on the previous daf, that a macha that's not in front of somebody is a macha. So why is he challenging Rav Nachman about that? The Gemara says, Basra Deshamim Rav Nachman's far. After Rava heard Rav Nachman's answer, and it's just Eitzah Tova Kamashmon. So now Rava agrees that even though the objection is not in his presence, it's a valid macha. So the Gemara says, Ashkechinu Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina Talmidei to Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina found the students of Rabbi Yochanan, and he said, Mi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Bakama. Did Rabbi Yochanan say how many people you have to make the objection in front of? So Rabbi Chibar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mechav B'fnei Shnayim. He said Rabbi Yochanan said you have to make the objection in front of two people. V'yavo Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mechav B'fnei Shlosha. You have to make the objection in front of three. Maybe they're arguing about this dispute of Rab in the name of Rav Huna. Dama Rab Rav Huna kol milsa des amri be'api tlasa leis be mishum lishna bisha. Because there's a statement that if there's something said in front of three people, then no longer are you going to be responsible for saying lashon hara. So if you say in front of, the point is that once it's said in front of three people, the word is going to spread about it. So if you say this statement that once it's said in front of three people, you don't have to worry about it being lashon hara anymore. Then you have to make this macha in front of three to have it spread. But if you say that it can be said in front of two people, Madamer Bifnei Shnayim, Wesley the Rab Bar Huna, the one who says in front of two, he doesn't agree with Rab Bar Huna because he'll say even in front of two people you can go around and spread without being lashon hara. Madamer Bifnei Gimel, but the one who says in front of three, Islay the Rab Bar Huna, he agrees with the statement of Rab Bar Huna. So you want to say that that's a dispute. So so this idea that lashon hara doesn't apply in front, and if it's said in front of three people already, there's a lot of limitations on this, and in practice, it's not really applicable because some say that it only works to say directly to the person, that you can't add anything on, also, and there can't be any editorializing whatsoever. So there's a lot of limitations. In the end, there's basically no leniency. So a person should be very, very careful before relying on this statement. So Gemara says no, that's not what they're arguing about. That's not what they're arguing about when whether or not it has to be in front of two or three. It's not related to this argument. Now, Lishna Bisha doesn't imply in front of anything called Milsa da Asivape Tlasa. That's not what they're arguing about. The Kulyama Islu de Rabba de Rafune. Everybody agrees with this statement of Rabba de Rafune. This is what they're arguing about. Manda Amar Bifnei Shnayim, the one who says in front of two people, because he's of the position, Macha Shlo B'fanav will have a Macha. He's of the position that a Macha that's not in front of him is a vow in Macha. So the one who says you have to do it in front of two people, because he says, even though it's not in front of him, it's a macha that's not in front of the person, is a vow in macha. And so therefore, you just say it in front of two people because you don't care if the person's going to hear it. And so therefore, just say it in front of two people, and eventually, they can either publicize it, or they can make sure that this person observed it, because they're just witnesses to the fact that the person observed it. One who says in front of three, because these are the position that it is a val macha. And so therefore, they're going to spread the word once it was said in front of three people. Or alternatively, everybody's in the position. Everybody's in the position. Everybody's in the position that if there's a macha and it's not in his presence, it is a vow in macha. Tadu Sabinan. One who says in front of two says we require witnesses. We don't require witnesses, but we want to make sure that it will become revealed and everybody will be aware of it. And then if you release it in front of three people, it'll all become aware. So now the Gemara says, Gido Bar Menyumi Havle Mechlu Yusel and Mechlu Ye. So Gido Bar Menyumi had a he wanted to make a macha. So Ashkechinu Rafuna Rafia Bar Rav Cholkia Bar Tuvi. So he went to Rafuna Rafia Bar Rav and Cholkia Bar Tuvi. He went to these three men. They were sitting together, and he went in front of them and he made a macha. Bashana the next year, Hadar Asal Mchuye, he had another macha he wanted to make. You don't need to make another macha. Once you make a macha the first year, you don't need to make a macha again during that 3 years. You're good. And some say he said, so one said that Chia Barav taught him, and one said that it was they all said it to him. So basically, either it was just Chia Barav or it was everybody saying it. So the Gemara says, but you do need to make a macha at the end of every single 3 years. So, but can a robber establish a chazaka? Meaning to say, why does he have to do it every 3 years? He just has to do it once. The guy's a robber. So the Gemara says, you really think that we're talking about a case where the guy is a robber? No, really, that's not what we're talking about here. He never was able to prove him that he's guilty, so why are you calling him a robber? So the Gemara says, Ella, when we think that he's like a robber, can he establish a chazaka? Meaning, say, even if he didn't prove it. So, he has to protest at the end of every 3 years. So, to prove that it's not his. Tani bar kapara, error, let's say he makes a complaint and he comes back and makes another complaint. Error, he keeps challenging it. If he's doing it on account of his original taina, ein lo chazaka, then the guy has no chazaka. But if it's not about that, then yesh lo chazaka. Meaning to say, if the two complaints or the two protests, the two machos contradict each other, then we're going to say that he's established a chazaka. But if they don't contradict each other, then we say he doesn't have a chazaka. Amar Rav Nachman, mecha b'fnei shnayim. He says you have to do a chazaka in front of two people. And he doesn't need to tell him to write a document. Moda b'fnei shnayim, but moda is where the court is going to tell you that we're going to force you to sell the property. We had this already in previously in Nizikin. So that has to be Tzar Chomar Sovo, and you have to, and he doesn't. The one who gives them the notice, he doesn't have to tell them write a document. But an admission, Tzar Chomar Sovo. Yes, that has to be in front of two, and he has to tell them write it. Kinyan b'fnei shnayim, a kinyan has to be in front of two. Tzar Chomar Sovo doesn't have to tell him to write it. V'kim stars b'shlosha. And this, the certification documents has to be done in front of a court of three. All right, we'll stop here. Shkoyach to everybody.